Welcome to Synergy. This is our little club that we have kind of made over the past couple semesters.
Say little like there aren't 80 people.
Yeah, so we grew from like,
It's just called false modesty.
we grew from like 14 players doing the Tchaikovsky Serenade for Strings to now like 80 members in our alias on our like, we've got like an online like student org thing, and our group is committed to like giving opportunities for composers, conductors, and performers with also like arts management focus. So two of our other executive board members are here currently. Grace Alexander is on her way from the airport. There's like a delay. She's on her way.
Yeah.
And then Louis also had this piece commissioned by us for our concert, which I can forward you a link to that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And then everyone, Jayce Orgren, of course, composer, conductor. Just had a piece premiere on Saturday that the band played.
Yesterday, right? That was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
That was 24 hours.
It seems like many days ago.
I think it was. Yeah.
But yeah, he's I mean, here to just like have a chat with us and about his experiences and all, and the steps he took afterwards.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here, and it seems like what you guys are doing is great and needed, and if it could be an outlet for creativity and for you to gain experience, that's fantastic. And I know there can be a lot to manage when you're at a good liberal arts college like this. You probably have balls in a lot of different courts, and if you can, keep them all in play, then it's going to serve you really, really well. So good for you for being here. And I was that way when I was a student. I was just going after any opportunity that came my way, and this is a safe environment to try all that stuff out. And once you're on your own, you don't always have the support system in place to be able to experiment and to take risks. And so it's great that you're doing this here. But I think I'll tell you a little bit about my path, and hopefully that will prompt some questions. And I'm really happy to speak openly about everything in my career, the ups and the downs, the challenges and like all the great times too, and what I've learned from that. So I was born in Washington State, a couple hours from Seattle, very small town. And my mom was interested in music, but didn't know too much about classical music. My dad had absolutely no reference point for classical music. But I started taking piano lessons when I was young, and it became something that I liked, but I was lazy and I was more into sports. Then I started playing saxophone in school band, and when I was a freshman in high school, I really started to get into band. It started to feel like I found my people. And we didn't have any French horns in the school band, and I was interested in the French horn, I think, because this movie that was popular in the early 90s, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner, had this great score with these amazing French horn parts. Dun, 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 and I wanted to play that, so I got a figure-eight chart and a dusty old French horn from the locker room in the band, band area, and I was like, dun, 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 okay, I think I can do this. So I started playing French horn, and I got even more into music with that. And I just remember sitting and playing horn in band and watching what my director was doing and thinking, I want to do that. And at first I thought, it's like, whoa, does that mean I'm going to be a high school band director? I'm not sure that's, like, I was thinking maybe I'm just thinking really different things, like maybe an architect or like maybe a doctor or something. And then it's like, no, it's got to be music. And I don't think I necessarily want to perform. I want to conduct, but I didn't know anything about orchestra. I'd never heard of professional orchestra. And I started really getting into the band repertoire and learning everything I could about that. And I thought, okay, I'll be a college band director, and that could be a really great career. And I came and visited St. Olaf because a friend of mine from high school was Lutheran, and he knew about it. He was like listing off all the colleges that he was going to apply to. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna apply to Princeton and Stanford and Harvard and St. Olaf. And I was like, wait, what? And in the Northwest, like, I'd never heard of St. Olaf. And so he told me about it, and I came out and visited, and I saw Steve Amundsen do a rehearsal on Shostakovich 5, and I was completely blown away, as you can imagine. And you know, he took time to talk. I mean, I was a 16-year-old kid, and he took time to talk to me, and Tim Marr took time to talk to me, and I loved the campus, and I was just kind of hooked. And I applied. It was the only school I applied to. I just knew that this was where I wanted to be. And I think mainly because of the unique quality of the ensemble music making here. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who end up here because of that. And I just felt like with Steve and Tim, I was going to have incredible mentors who were great musicians. And like as an undergrad, you usually don't have a lot of access to those people. They're usually at bigger universities or conservatories where most of their contact is with grad students. So I just felt like I'm just gonna get a lot of time with these amazing teachers, and it proved to be true. I started out music ed here, and I decided in my sophomore year that I knew I was not going to be a high school teacher. I really wanted to do conducting, either at the college level or the professional level. And also I composed a little bit in high school, but sophomore year, I started composing a little more, like with theory class. We had to write pieces in the style of this composer or that, and I got really good feedback on those, and it felt fun. And so I switched to theory comp, and I ended up being an amazing decision for me, because I mean, I never would have admitted it to any faculty member at the time, but I was kind of creating my own conducting major too. It was just a way for me to free up my schedule so I could take like every history and theory and analysis class I could, plus composition classes, you know, and just really focus in on music. And so it was a risk, you know. It was kind of like music ed was a little more of a stable path, but I knew it was right for me. And then for my master's, I didn't know if I wanted to go the wind ensemble route or the orchestra route, but I ended up, one of the places I applied to, New England Conservatory, there was a teacher there who said, well, with me, you can study both. And so that turned out to be a great fit. And going to Boston and studying in one of the greatest conservatories in the US was kind of the perfect contrast to St. Olaf. You know, at St. Olaf, I felt really supported. I felt like it was possible with hard work and with the talent I had to kind of rise to the top. And I needed to have my butt kicked. And NEC in Boston did that. And my teacher immediately was just like, no, your rhythm's not good enough. Like, we need to fix this. And I was just kind of like, whoa, I thought I had really good rhythm. I mean, and Steve Amundsen, who was my conducting teacher here, has like the best rhythm on the planet, but he is also like the nicest person on the planet. So it's, you know, he wasn't someone who was just going to be like, no, your rhythm isn't good enough. You got to fix this, you know. So I was ready for a little more of that East Coast, like, okay, this is how it has to be if you want to be at the highest level kind of mentality. And also I was surrounded by students who had way more experience than I had with kind of professional level music making, and some just amazing people. So I learned a lot from the other students, and it pushed me big time. Sure.
Were there any spaces at St. Olaf where you felt that push, or was it kind of like a
oh, sure. Yeah, and lots of little ways. And, you know, I mean, with composition, I think Tim Marr pushed me quite a lot. He's someone who I think is always kind of looking at what you're doing and trying to see the other side. And you must have heard the legend of Alice Hansen. No? It's been a while. I mean, I graduated just over 20 years ago now. But she was, I guess, the Louis Epstein. She was the main music history teacher. And she was an absolute force of nature. I mean, her lectures on certain pieces were legendary. Her Beethoven 5 lecture, her Symphony Fantastique lecture, and she was extremely hard on students. A lot of people were terrified of her because she knew her stuff and she knew how to get a lot of hard work out of people. But the way that I look at a score now, the way I can assign words to what's going on in music, they come from her. I mean, like she gave so many of us in our, her career at St. Olaf, so many of her students, she gave us a way to talk about what an interval meant, or what a phrase meant, or what a certain kind of orchestration meant. And so yes, I mean, I got pushed, but it was just different. At NEC, there wasn't like the support, and it was just much more like, we're going to set you up to do the highest level of work. Okay, now our time's over. See ya. Not that my teacher wasn't, a good person, but it wasn't the same. I mean, it's like my mom. I know I've talked to some of you this week, so you're probably hearing this for the third time. But my mom calls St. Olaf the huggiest place on the planet. So most places would be a contrast to that. But yeah, and then after my time at NEC, I got a Fulbright to go study in Stockholm, Sweden, which was another huge contrast. And I studied like really purely orchestral conducting there. And we had a big conducting class, 14 conductors from all over the world. Some of them had been professional orchestra players for a long time. And that's where I really kind of started to learn the standard orchestral repertoire and learned like really the depth of knowledge you need in orchestral repertoire, how the instruments work, and especially like the thoroughness you need in your knowledge of a score to conduct and rehearse it effectively with professional musicians. And once I realized how much time that would take, I basically stopped composing because I just couldn't do both. I knew I had to spend time to really get to know every piece deeply and intimately. So that kind of became my focus. And coming out of Stockholm, I got my dream job, really. I got assistant conductor of the Cleveland Orchestra and got to spend 3 years around one of the greatest ensembles on the planet and watch a lot of the greatest living conductors come through. Got to conduct them, more and more each year. I also conducted the Cleveland Youth Orchestra, so I got to do a lot of repertoire that I'd been dreaming about with them. And that was from 2006 to 2009. And since then, I've been a freelance conductor, and I've been conducting mostly around the US and Canada, but a decent amount in Europe too, and occasionally further afield, like I've conducted in Hong Kong and Australia and New Zealand and Mexico. And so it's taken me to a lot of really interesting places and helped me learn about a lot of different cultures. I went to South Africa to conduct, where part of my trip there was working with this huge youth orchestra program in rural South Africa. It was just amazing. And it just like made great connections with students. And a lot of them then came and played with the professional orchestra I was conducting for the week, which was great. And so it's been a really interesting career where I've done a lot of just kind of straight symphonic programs of classical repertoire. I've done a lot of contemporary music, kind of with my background as a composer. I've done pops concerts with singer-songwriters and like movie scores with live orchestra, which is something I never dreamt of doing, but has been really fun. And I've gained a lot of sort of knowledge about film and how music and film work together from that. I've usually done 1 or 2 opera productions a year. And I sang in the choirs here at St. Olaf for a couple of years, and I love vocal music. And so to get to work with singers is really valuable.
Which choir did you sing?
I sang in Viking my freshman year and then Cantor sophomore year. Yeah, that's kind of where we are now. Just it's been a rough pandemic for everybody, for people who who are making their life as a freelance musician, I think it's been especially difficult. I think as a conductor, in a way, it's like even one layer more difficult because I can't like pick up a fiddle or practice. It's just, I just haven't conducted much. I've had a few gigs even during the worst parts of the pandemic that I was able to preserve, and I'm thankful for those. And now this fall, it's kind of like a little bit back to normal with masks, and a few extra protocols, but it's been nice to be working again, and nice to be composing again. I mean, this was a nice pandemic kind of project to write a piece for the same old fans, and it was very hard to get it over the finish line and get it turned in. Just the amount of time it takes to write a large ensemble piece with a lot of fast notes, which this one had. Yeah, a lot of that too, but you're right. And it just felt really right to be composing again, even though it's a challenge. Like I sent a score to Tim Marr the night before my first rehearsal of a big orchestral program where I was a finalist for a music director position, and so I wasn't studying scores that night. I was getting the piece finished. So it's difficult to balance both, but really rewarding when it can happen. So that's kind of my story. And along the way, I know you specifically sort of wanted me to talk about festivals. I spent 2 summers at the Brevard Music Center while I was doing my master's. So I was doing my master's in conducting, and then I spent summers studying composition there, which was kind of a nice balance to focus on composition over the summer. And then I did the Aspen Music Festival for the conducting program for a couple of years as well. And I had really great experiences with both of those, and just opportunities to make some connections that I've kept throughout my career that led to interesting projects and work and friendships. And so go for those if you have the opportunity, and not just the Aspens and the Tanglewoods, but there are a lot of really excellent music making going on at festivals all over the US. So give those a go.
Yeah, you mentioned this in the meet and greet a couple days ago, but like, how do you facilitate those connections that you make? Like a lot of sort of professional practice class, which is about networking, and
Sure.
Connections that you made, how those impact you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a world that you need to have talent, and you need to have something to offer, and kind of a voice with your work. But it doesn't go very far without having some connections. And I think pretty much every industry in the world is like that. And I think what I've found is that it's just important to take that little bit of time to keep in regular touch with folks. So it's not that you're just reaching out when you need something, but you're showing your interest in them and their work, not just telling them about your work. Asking good questions, being curious. And if you're going to go to a concert, go not just to meet people, but go because you're really interested and you're curious about the work these people are doing. And then again, when you have an opportunity to talk to them, don't just say, oh, here, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, or really butter them up, but just say what you liked about it. Ask about aspects of the performance or the piece they wrote or whatever. Just be someone who's curious and who shows up regularly. I tell the story of this composer in New York who, he's an excellent composer. When I met him at first, I'd never heard of him, but he just kept showing up to everything I was doing in New York, and he kept giving me his music, and I didn't look at it for a long time because he was just a little he was very nice, but it was just oh my gosh, this guy's really pushing it. And eventually he just showed up enough times that I finally listened to something and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so persistence, friendly, persistence can pay off big time. And I think especially for you composers out there, this is the way of getting your pieces performed, is just that kind of friendly persistence, and just keep, keep getting it out there, and keep meeting people, and you can advocate for your, I think at St. Olaf, I don't know how it is now compared to when I was a student, but I think, advocating for yourself too aggressively could seem a little like, ooh, that isn't nice. That isn't the way we do things. It's better to be modest. It's fine to just go out there and say, this is what I do. This is why I think it could offer something to you or to the world. And I love it if you take an interest too. I think that's the attitude to have. Yeah.
Was there any point in your journey as a musician and an artist where you were unsure of what you were doing, and if what you were doing really mattered, and what did you do, or what brought you out of that? If you ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I've had many, many. One comes to mind when I was a freshman at St. Olaf, and I was in the St. Olaf band. There's two of each horn, and I was playing fourth horn, like the first chair, fourth horn. So the woman sitting next to me was a senior, and she was, by the time I was like a senior in high school and I got in here, I was having a little bit of a crisis about, I should be an environmental studies major and maybe go into like environmental law or something, because I just care deeply for the environment and about those issues. And I just think that, back then in 1997 and in 2021, it is the crisis of our time. And like every crisis we're having within our lifetimes is going to boil down to this one. And the fact that some people don't see that is incredibly maddening to me. But I just remember saying to her, it's like, because she was an environmental studies major, and I was just like, I just feel like doing music is selfish. And I feel like I should be doing what you're doing. And she was like, Jayce, I've been sitting next to you for 6 months in band. This is what you're supposed to do. She was just like, I've never been around someone who is this into music. She's like, you really love music. You just need to do it. And that's the whole answer. And she's just one person, but it just gave me this calm that this was what I was supposed to do, because it brings out qualities in me that don't easily come out when I'm doing really much of anything else. And I'm a really, I don't know why this comes to mind first, but like I'm a really bad dancer, and I really don't like to dance. And I think that I think of that one because I can be quite self-conscious in a lot of ways and kind of analyze everything I'm saying and doing. And when I'm making music, I don't really do that so much. I just kind of do the music. It's kind of this, if you can find something, and hopefully you guys have with music, you can find something that kind of takes away some of those insecurities, where you can feel more free and more yourself, then I think that is what you have to do. But I mean, there have been a lot of times along the way where just within music, I felt like my weaknesses are going to just be so big that I'm not going to be able to make the kind of career I want to make. As a professional conductor, working with professional orchestras, there are a lot of really charming conductors out there, and they know how to woo an orchestra. They know the perfectly timed joke. They know the way to get everybody on their side. And though I know that I bring a friendly kind of presence and I am always about the music, that's not necessarily my personality to kind of charm everyone. And so I've had a lot of insecurity about, you know, my career and like, do they like me enough to really play their best for me and to ask me back? And I have had my ups and downs, not just in the pandemic, but before. I mean, being a freelancer, there are times when I'm super busy, and there are times when I go 2 months without conducting, and I just don't feel like myself. And I feel like then the next time I conduct, when I'm there, I end up not really feeling rusty, but I doubt my ability just because I've been doing it. And it's a strange aspect of conducting. But I guess I just keep going back to there's just this little like voice inside of me that just says, okay, there are like a lot of aspects to who I am, but in a way, I am a person with a primary function. And that function is to stand in front of a group of musicians and help them sound the best they can. And to have contact with great music leading up to that, to be studying the score, learning what makes it tick, and then trying to help people do it well. It just feels like that's why I'm here. So I kind of come back to that when things feel shaky.
What was your application process to the Fulbright like, and what specifically out of all of the other European countries that I assume you applied for through the scholarship, what brought you to Sweden?
So Fulbrights vary in terms of the competitiveness from country to country. And if you want to go to the UK, there are like 20 grants and 2,000 people apply. And if you want to go to Sweden, at least this was a while back, there are, I think, 12 grants and 60 people apply. Those are better numbers. And so I was paying attention to that. There are also, you know, I'd taken Spanish in high school and at St. Olaf, and there are a lot of countries where, for example, Germany has a ton of grants. A decent number of people apply, but they really want you to be able to speak German, or to take. You have to have a little bit of proficiency and then take a course right when you get there. But in Scandinavia, Scandinavian countries, you don't need to know the language. And a lot of programs there are already taught in English. And I knew that the conducting class there was in English. And also I have some Swedish heritage, and I was interested in Sweden. And it just turned out that the conducting program there at that time was kind of extraordinary. There was a lot of really great things happening. They got funding to hire a professional chamber orchestra for the students to conduct pretty much every week, all year. And then about 3 times a year, we went to one of the professional orchestras in Scandinavia, where it was just for the conducting students. That was our week, and we rehearsed them all week with a teacher supervising us, and then we shared a concert at the end. It was the most expensive educational program in Sweden, which I did not pay a dime for, other than a €50 a year student union fee. Because in Scandinavia, higher education is free regardless of where you're from. So I had the Fulbright grant to cover living expenses and stuff. But yeah, and then the process of applying for them is pretty intense. And if you guys are considering it, I mean, I know that there's a lot of great support for this year, but I was applying it doing the conservatory, and there was a person on staff there, like there is here, who will look at all your materials and advise you and look at your essays and your project proposals, and they have to be like airtight. And the person at NEC was super helpful to me. I thought I had written really well in my materials, and she was just like, no, why do you keep writing, you know, powerful impact? That is so overused. Find something better, you know, all just those little things that gave it more of a personal kind of touch and a little more kind of sparkle, and helped me focus everything in. So I would encourage you to seek out that kind of help if you're going to apply for a Fulbright, and you should. I mean, it was an incredible program because I also just had a lot of time with the other Fulbrighters in the country. We gathered several times for conferences, and there's a whole gathering for Fulbrighters in Europe, and I think they do it in different regions of the world. And then there's just a nice community that comes from it afterwards. So 2 thumbs up. Yeah.
So you said how like St. Olaf was a more like kinder, like the most helpful place, or I don't remember exactly what you said, but then you went to NEC and it was a little more cutthroat. So how did you like mentally, how did you like adjust to that type of change, and like how did your like work ethic change?
Yeah, I mean, I always had worked hard, but I think I realized I needed to kind of cut out, like here I was just involved with everything. And I needed to kind of reduce it a little more to like, okay, my conducting lessons and my classes I'm taking, and then I'm gonna try to compose on the side, but like, that's it. So that was my way of coping with the kind of higher standards. But it was a learning experience. Like, St. Olaf is really, really well run. Let me just tell you, and like this music department, it's not that everything's perfect, but this is a well-oiled machine in terms of the logistics. The amount of support you guys have here, like for the ensembles, the way that like, I mean, I'm sure that you guys have experienced, and I probably did at some point, like little conflicts with scheduling or whatever, but like doing conservatory was a disaster. And like the person who did the scheduling for the rooms was like the most unfriendly human being I've ever met. And the whole place was run, I mean, I hate to say it, but like by failed former musicians or failed musicians. It's like, it's just, you know, it's not what matters there. Like what matters there is your time with your teacher in a lesson and like the level of music making. I feel like here, the level of support and the level of the music making are kind of in sync. There, it was just, they didn't have the funding, or they didn't prioritize kind of the support. And so I just remember like with this scheduling person who was so ornery, I went in to ask him about a mistake he'd made, and he just like dismissed me. And then I really pushed it, and my conducting teacher heard about it the next day. And he was just basically like, Jayce, this is not St. Olaf. Like, and he went to Ithaca College, like also a liberal arts college where things were run kind of in a way more akin to here. And he was just like, no, it doesn't work that way here. And you've got to just go with the flow. And I had to develop a thicker skin. I had to just kind of learn that if people were in my view, a little harsh, they weren't doing it to be harsh. They were doing it just because either they were an East Coaster who just like grew up that way, or they knew that the way they were saying it would help me get better. So yeah, it was an adjustment period. I mean, I've lived mostly, most of my life now in the Eastern US, and I've kind of gotten used to that. And when I come here, it's kind of a luxury, the way everyone is so kind of down to earth and friendly. It's nice.
Sorry, you go ahead.
It's okay. How about someone who hasn't asked the question yet?
Yeah. How did you find a way to balance out your career and being a dad?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And, I've been, since he was born, when I've been out of town, I have FaceTime with him every single day except yesterday. And like, it's hard, and I felt really, really bad. And it was hard to not see him yesterday. But it was a busy day, and like things slipped through the cracks. And luckily my wife is just really, really supportive, and we're on the same page about, she knows that I need to be away sometimes, and it's just a part of what I do. And I also have supportive parents myself, and my in-laws are super supportive. My mother-in-law is at our place right now helping out with my son. One thing that I was told before I had children is this was a friend whose dad was an opera singer and was away a lot doing opera productions. And she said, yeah, it was hard when he was away, but when he was there, it was just so special. And so I just try to make sure that when I have time with him, it's like really quality time. And I mean, in the pandemic, I've been around more. And so the challenge lately has been more that I haven't really had enough work, and I've had a lot of time watching him. And so it's a little harder to be like present all the time, and a little frustrating that I can't kind of do what I think of as being like my primary purpose as a human being, like I said. But I know I'm gonna look back on it and just be super thankful that we had kind of all this extra time together. You know, and I try to share music with him. His favorite instrument is the oboe.
How old is he?
3.
Interesting.
Yeah. And luckily, one of my good friends who lives nearby is a professional oboist, so he gets to come over and play for a little bit. And my wife sings and I sing, and so there's a lot of singing and marching around going on in our house, and I love to do stuff outside. And we live in a great place for that, so we do a lot of that. And, but no, I mean it's hard. I just think that the silver lining is yes, I'm away, but when I'm back, it's special. Yeah. And we miss each other. And so then there's just like some closeness that comes from that. I just always know that there is going to be a point with my career that I won't push past in terms of balance. There are certain things that I just know I won't miss. And that's kind of a no compromise kind of thing. But it's been good so far, and hopefully, you know, I know it'll get more challenging in a way when he's older, and then I'm, you know, maybe a little bit busier later in my career, but it's been good so far. Yeah.
So you said that you were assistant conductor at the Cleveland Orchestra, which, by the way, Mike Sachs is my favorite living drummer. So with the responsibilities, I'm just kind of curious about the responsibilities of an assistant conductor, and how does that compare to what you've been doing now freelance?
Yeah, so really the biggest part of my job was covering, which just means being ready to step in if I have to, like knowing the music for that week, being in all the rehearsals, listening, watching what the music director or the guest conductor is doing. If they have questions about balance during the rehearsal or need something during the rehearsal, I'm ready to, you know, help with that. I check in with them at all the breaks and after rehearsals to, you know, see if there's anything that they want me to do. Sometimes I have to deliver notes to musicians right before the concert, which was not pleasant because no musician in the greatest orchestra in the world wants to receive a note about what the conductor thought they were doing wrong right before they play.
The concert,
yeah. And then I would sit in the recording booth for most of the concerts because we did edited, like delayed broadcasts of each program. So of the 3 or 4 performances, we kind of picked the best one, use that as a basis, and then with audience noise or like little mistakes or Mike Sachs cracked a note, which almost never happens, like virtually never happens. You know, we edited from one of the other nights. And then I conduct some of the education family concerts. By my second year, I was conducting one piece on a subscription concert and one piece in the summer series. By my last year, I got to conduct a whole subscription program and then do some kind of other, like plan some side projects. I spoke to donors a lot, or like would go to sort of social events for people who support the orchestra. And sometimes do the pre-concert talks or kind of pre-concert or post-concert interviews with guest artists or guest conductors. So yeah, it was a great time to learn about how an orchestra that works at the highest level really functions and what the standard is. And I mean, it's because that is the highest level. So many, even though, I mean, there are some orchestras that I've been to who are on that same kind of level, like the New York Phil and Boston Symphony and LA Phil. But I got used to that standard where everything works super well. And like as the conductor, you're treated like gold, and it's not that way everywhere. But you know, it's at least it was good for me to experience kind of that level for a few years.
As a student, how did you factor in practicing your instrument on top of your focus on conducting?
Well, I didn't very much. And you know, it was sort of like, okay, I know, especially my junior and senior year, I was principal of horn in St. Olaf Band, and my senior year I was principal in St. Olaf Orchestra, and like I knew what I had to do in terms of chop maintenance and like to be able to have the endurance to do it. So that was kind of my main motivator. But I was not a very dedicated instrumentalist. I knew that I wanted to conduct and compose, and I loved playing in band and orchestra, but it just practicing was not my top priority. So that's just the honest answer. And I basically stopped playing horn after I graduated from St. Olaf. I had to play a little bit in conducting classes here and there, like, you know, for other conducting students, but yeah, I kind of let it go. Yeah.
So I was wondering how your grad school application process, like making the decision to attempt that transition. So like in your senior year of St. Olaf, you decided to apply to places like NEC. I guess that there were probably some others similar to that as well. Did you feel like confident in your ability to like get into a conservatory like that, or were you like kind of like, was that one of your reaching schools at the time? Like, I just always wonder, do you know, like if you
No, the answer is no, I didn't know. And in my freshman year, James Miller, who's the director of bands at Gustavus, and we were in the same class, and we started the Ball Hall of Bands together. I don't know if that's still going now, yeah, but it did for at least 15 years. And it was a group that was non-audition and student run. And so I conducted that for 4 years, plus I put together, like during J term, right? Do you call it J term or do you call it interim?
We call it interim.
Yeah, interim, yeah. The orchestra often doesn't play much or interim, so I put together a string orchestra, and you know, I videotaped all this stuff, and I did Copeland's Appalachian Spring my senior year. So I knew I had some good video to show and some good experience, and I knew I'd have some good letters of recommendation. So I mean, but I just knew that with conducting programs, as with a lot of the top grad programs, it's super competitive. And so I applied, I think, 5 places. I probably should have applied to way more. If you're thinking of applying to grad school and conducting, I would apply to, like, I'm not joking, like 10 schools, because some of them get 200 applications for 1 spot or 2 spots, and some of them get 30 applications for 2 spots. And there are really great teachers out there, not just at the most famous places. And I think I applied to 5, and I got into 3, you know, which was, I think, as much as I could have possibly hoped. And the one that I really wanted to go to was Rice, and I didn't get in. And so, you know, it's not like, I hope I haven't made any of this sound like smooth sailing, you know, because I've had lots of disappointments. Yeah, I mean, I applied to some places, like one of the places I got into was University of Texas at Austin, which is a good music school, but it's not like, you know, NEC or Michigan or Indiana or something. And I think I would have had a great experience there. And, you know, they offered me a full ride and stipend, which NEC didn't do.
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of graduate programs at state schools do that. And so that's super valuable too. To get out of that, you know, I still have about $5,000 to $8,000. I think it's more like $8,000 of debt from my time at NEC, even though I had half scholarship or whatever. It's expensive to live in Boston. So I think apply to a variety of places, cast a wide net, and meet the people, meet your potential teacher before you apply. That's what I would say. Most of the really good things that have happened to me in terms of getting jobs, getting it, like I applied to Aspen like 4 times and I didn't get in. And then I watched David Zinman, who was the conducting teacher at Aspen at the time, for a whole week of rehearsals. And I went up to him after one rehearsal and I said, hey, would you mind if we chat a little bit in the dressing room so I could ask you some questions tomorrow? I'd love to hear about this piece. And he said, oh, sure. And so we talked for half an hour. And then my cover letter was, Dear Mr. Zinman, it was so great to meet you in Stockholm and watch all of your rehearsals, you know, and then I got it. So, I mean, it's a factor. So if you can, however you do it, if you can make a connection with that teacher in that program before applying, it's going to go a long way, because other people have certainly done that. So if you're going in cold turkey, like, you know, you don't know them at all, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, all right, that's our time with Jayce. Thank you so much.
You guys, great to be here.
Yeah, and then you can all turn your chairs.
Take a quick picture.
Oh, yeah, can we please?
Oh, you got it?
Yes, I got
Okay.
it. No, you don't. Or maybe he stays with you.
That's a little much. That's all.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel the kids over there. Do they need to curve in a little bit more? We probably actually know what we should do.
2 rows, you guys?
People in the back. Oh, yeah. Let's do the soccer picture.
Oh, come on.
Come on, you Hey.
God, that looks so awkward.
Okay. Thank you, Jayce. And then, yeah, you can all turn your chairs towards this way so that we can all.
Okay, before everyone gets all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Before you all get settled, can you at least shoot your faces at my direction? Should I just see you for a second? I don't want to see you. Hi. Oh, great. Now I will enjoy your profiles for the next 30 minutes. Hi, Sam and Grace, is this my official start?
Yeah, so you can just introduce yourself forward a little. I think the camera's over there, so, but yeah.
I feel like I'm looking at a bunch of people sitting on a bus because you're all sideways. Oh, thank you. Oh, it's okay. No, sorry. It's okay. I will pretend you are looking at me. You can see me. Well, it is so nice to be here. Thank you, Sam and Grace, for inviting me. My name is Lynn Hutchinson. I am class of 96. I think I said class of 92, which just goes to show what happens when you're that far out of St. Olaf. The years kind of start to blur together. And I was part of the Alice Hansen. I was an Alice Hansen disciple as well. I was there at the time she was there. So Jason, that was really fun to hear you talk about that, and I would concur with everything you said about her. So yeah, I'm a St. Olaf grad. I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in White Bear Lake. Go Bears. I got a piano degree at St. Olaf and a master's degree in music theory at UC Santa Barbara, where the weather does not suck ever. So now I was thinking as I was listening to Jason speak, is it Jayce or Jason? I'm sorry.
Jayce. Yeah.
Jayce.
Yeah.
No, okay. As I was listening to Jayce speak, with such beautiful clarity about his calling, I want to ask you guys something. And maybe you don't have to raise hands because this may be embarrassing, but just in your little inner self, how many of you in this room feel perfectly clear about where your musical calling is? All right, great. How many of you have maybe some inkling, but are kind of writing things out a little bit to see how things go? Okay. And how many brave souls are like, I have no idea where this music degree is taking me after I leave St. Olaf? Hey, all right. Okay, so I will be very well addressed to the latter two categories. I went to St. Olaf. I was a self-taught pianist who became a voracious sight reader just by the way my brain works, I guess. And I kind of faked my way into St. Olaf, to be truthful. What's that?
Up to you for that.
Well, I did. I was someone who I'll just give the quick story because it's kind of funny, I think. Our TV blew out in a storm. This was back when TVs had like antennas, and our TV blew out in a storm when I was 12. And in our house, we didn't have money to fix it till I was at least 16. And there was this old crappy piano sitting in the basement. And that became my entertainment because TV was gone and I was obsessed. I was obsessed. And my mom bought me music from sheet music from garage sales, and I put tapes on the keys of what the note names were. And for whatever reason, I was sight reading adults in circles by the time I was 17 or 18. And I was hired to be an accompanist. I was hired to be an ensemble pianist. I started arranging and doing some composing, but mostly arranging and orchestrating. So by the time I showed up at St. Olaf, I was actually making decent cash as a freelance musician. And I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I was having a great time, and someone said, "Do you know how to conduct a choir?" I was like, "I absolutely know how to conduct a choir." And then I would make it up. And they say, "Do you know how to play the organ?" I was like, "I totally know how to play the organ." And then I would sit down and be like, "Oh, this is not like a piano at all. This is very different from a piano." But I did a lot of fake it till you make it. And then I get to St. Olaf, and the buck kind of stopped there because I could not fake that I had not studied classical piano since I was 5 years old. And it became very clear in my first week of music theory classes. The teacher was going through a review of, basic things like major scales and minor scales and triads. And I started laughing. And the teacher was like, "Miss Hutchinson, what's so funny?" I said, "I cannot believe there's names for this stuff. This is amazing." I had no idea what these things were. So I had a long way to go. That said, I worked my tuchus off. I got my piano degree. I got a full ride to UC Santa Barbara to study with who I wanted to in music theory, and I got to teach musicianship classes there. And it was just a really fortunate ride. And in my case, I had something in my brain that kind of clicked with music, plus a lot of scrappy determination to just make things happen. So when I finished my graduate degree in music theory, now have you heard the joke about music theory parties? Oh, first of all, are there any music theory majors in the room? Ish?
Comp majors.
Comp majors. Oh, you guys are different. No, music theory people, just different. There was a joke in grad school. Someone said, "You're at a music theory party when there's no music playing." And that actually literally proved to be true. It was very, very interesting to me. I loved pulling apart the pieces. Believe it or not, I loved studying Schenkerian analysis. I loved all these things because to me, music was this passion and this part of my life. It was something that connected me to my community and people around me. And so to me, it was like, maybe if you're a really great athlete and then you learn about how the muscles in your body work. It's just fascinating to me. I loved it. I loved being in a classroom with college-age musicians, teaching them musicianship training. I ended up, I realized at the time I wasn't happy with the musicianship training material that was available at the time. This is before the internet was like a thing, guys. I'm sorry to sound like that older person, but this is back in my day before the internet was like a thing. It was a real rarity to be able to find any online or any auditory assistance for learning musicianship. So I wrote a textbook on how to take dictation better and found it really interesting. So then it came time to pursue, the PhD and the full-time professorship track. And like Jayce mentioned about St. Olaf, I think you guys are starting, if you didn't know already, St. Olaf is this beautiful gem on a hill. And I know it's not perfect. And I know you work hard. I know all of you work hard. But there is a bit of an embrace of community there that doesn't exist in other places. So as I started looking and considering the number of tenure track positions available in a music theory piano combo in the United States, it was slim pickings. There were maybe 3 or 4 full-time tenure track positions in North America a year. And those odds did not seem very good to me. That was not, I was not willing to go that way. So I thought I'm going to take some time off of academics before considering a PhD track and see what else is out there. Okay, now I have a pop quiz for everyone in this room. What creatures make music? What are the most common creatures to make music on the planet?
Birds.
Oh, yeah, those two. What about upright mammals? Humans! And who are the audiences of music?
Birds.
Birds! Our dogs! No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know that sounds really funny, but by the time I had gone through the academic rigmarole, for me, I had lost track with some of the humanity of music making. Do you ever feel that? Like you're in your practice room, especially with COVID? Yeah, I felt that. I felt that a lot. And I was staring at dots and lines and I was like, where are the people? I like people. I like to know what's going on in the world. So I went back to freelancing. I moved back to Minnesota. I had to reinvest in turtlenecks and sweaters after living in Santa Barbara for 3 years. That was a real bummer. I worked at a couple of big churches doing music ministry there. I landed a position. It was kind of a pinch me kind of job because I also played in rock bands throughout St. Olaf time. Don't tell any of my old professors. I don't think they would have been too thrilled about that, but I played jazz, I played rock, I played gospel, I played anything and everything that was interesting to me. And so that continued in my freelance life, which was brilliant, but kind of further spun me. I thought, gosh, I could do that. I was maybe a little bit of a career ADHD in that way. I'm not totally sure, but it all was fascinating. Where the people were good, the music was good, is what I found. And I was interested. So I moved forward and I thought, okay, I think I get what Minnesota music life is like. I want to go back to California and I am to look into doing the thing that I actually did the best out of all, and that was working collaboratively with musicians to make them sound great. And that came often as a pianist, but also as an arranger. So I moved to LA and I was very fortunate to land a job working with an arranger. The first day on the job, I was her assistant to start, and I helped put together an orchestra to play an arrangement for Whitney Houston, who was still alive at the time. And my life then became Capitol Records, going to studios all over LA with some of the biggest names in pop music and film music at the time. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. And people are fascinating. And I learned about orchestrators, I learned about copyists, I learned about the people who hire the musicians. It was like a crash course in what Hollywood musical life is like. And I had fun playing the Jimmy Kimmel show. I played with some rock bands. People would ask me if I could do things, and for better or worse, I said yes, and then I figured out how to do it if I didn't know how to do it. And it led me from one opportunity to the next. After some time, Now, I hope you're not squirmish about this because the next part is about romance. Can you handle that?
What?
Yes? It's about to get a little squishy in here because the next part is when I met who is now my husband. Oh, let's see. Oh, I have a picture of him. Here we go. Isn't that nice? Yeah, I'll tell him you awed for him. That's David. David saw me playing at a show one night, and I will say, I hope things have changed. Back at this time, as a female keyboardist playing with a lot of men, I saw a lot of ladies making eyes at men in bands, but I didn't see any reciprocation. Men didn't usually make ugly eyes. Well, maybe that's because it was me. I don't know, but Dave was making eyes at me. I was making it back. I took my solos longer. Oh my goodness, I pulled out all my little musical jokes, and the guys in the band were looking at me like I was insane. They're like, oh boy, Hutchinson is on. It is happening. So anyway, long story short, married said man, and his job transferred him to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And he called me at work and he said, well, do you want to move to Amsterdam? And I said, Amsterdam? I've always wanted to go to Denmark. That's a joke because Amsterdam's in the Netherlands. I said yes to moving when I didn't even know what country it was. Fake it till you make it. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, turns out Amsterdam is not in Denmark. It is in the Netherlands. We moved there. And I thought, well, it'll take me a few months and then I'll do my thing and I will freelance. Except for I didn't qualify for a work visa. A little minor detail I probably should have looked into before I left. No work visa. I didn't speak Dutch, which if you visit, have any of you been to Amsterdam? Show of hands, Amsterdam? A few of you, okay, all right. So if you show up as a tourist, you can speak English, but when you live there, you need to speak the language. And so no one wanted a non-Dutch speaking pianist showing up without a work visa. So I had this opportunity to start over, and the silence of my phone not ringing was deafening. And when Jayce mentioned going 2 months without conducting, I get it. I totally get it. It was just very unsettling. And then in that time, I thought, well, what do I really care about? I remember that thing about humans that we were talking about. For the first time since I graduated from St. Olaf, I stopped thinking about what was it that I was good at or that I could get an opportunity for. But what was it that people needed? Did people need another classically trained pianist? Maybe. Did people need more opportunities to go to places to see concerts with music that has been played thousands of times? That's for sure true, but I wasn't the one to do it. It dawned on me that what I had was a little taste of many different musical environments, and that I actually found that I had a knack for synthesizing all those different types of things, providing a safe place for audiences to explore different types of music. And so thus, Canvas was born. I started Canvas in our house, our little Dutch house. It was 400 years old. And I invited every Dutch neighbor I could think. I couldn't talk to them, but I translated in Dutch an invitation to come hear music at my house. And I thought, I don't know if a single person's going to show up, because I think they thought, believe it or not, they thought I was a little loud and a little rambunctious. I don't know why they thought that, but for some reason they thought I was a little much. I could tell. So I didn't know if anyone would come. In the end, 14 people came, including a Dutch neighbor, an elder man who spoke no English and quite frankly was quite grumpy with me all the time. I was shocked he was there. And long story short, I played a short program of light classical music, and I had created a game where I had cut up pieces of staff paper, and I had pencils for each person there. And I wasn't sure this was going to go over, so I waited to see how they responded. And you know when you give a performance and you know your audience is with you, you know that feeling? And you know the opposite feeling, hopefully not too well, right? When your audience isn't with you. This audience was with me. And they were in my home, so they were basically bound to do whatever it was I told them to do. So I said, I've got a game, and I had a Dutch friend translate for me, and I handed each of them a little piece of staff paper and a pencil. I said, I want you to put 10 dots on the lines or in between the lines and put your name on the back and hand it to me. Oh, I'm not a musician. I'm not a composer. I'm like, I don't care. Just put dots on the page. They handed it back. I played each thing as though it were in the treble clef, and then I improvised an accompaniment underneath it. And I had no idea what these Dutch folks were going to say about this, especially the grumpy old guy. They were over the moon. And I will skip to the end of this. They stayed till 2 a.m. redoing compositions because they wanted to do this over and over and over again. Now, did I play a lovely Debussy? Did I play Chopin beautifully? Yeah, it was probably pretty decent. But at the end of the day, this evening changed the dynamic, certainly with me and my husband and our neighbors, but even within our building. And it was this musical experience that for you all and me was not rocket science, right? It was not anything massive, but for them, they had interacted with music in a new way. And in a way that was unexpected, and in a way that was accessible to them. It wasn't unintelligent, but it was accessible. And it changed how I thought about programming moving forward. And I thought, this is something that I want to do. I want to help feed the listeners. I want to help audiences engage more in their music. I want to give them the Alice Hansen or Louis Epstein experience in their music listening. So not just when they come to a Canvas concert. Yes, I hope they love it. But I hope when they then go to see the Cleveland Orchestra or when they go to see LA Opera, they are fed and understanding and engaged in a different way. As I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have watched children get so much beautiful attention and care in their music education. And then when you get to be an adult, unless you do what you guys are doing, unless you're an adult, pretty much adults you're left to fend for yourself. Maybe you join a ukulele group when you're a senior citizen, or maybe you get to sing in your church choir. But I realized adults love to be fed information about music too. And there's not much space for it. I'm so pleased that there are more and more before concert series talks and things. What Canvas does is a little bit, maybe a little bit more different. I start with a goal in mind of what do I want the audience to take away? When they're at the water cooler at work the next day, what are they going to be talking about? And they're going to be talking about things they learned, things that engage them. And thanks to technology and how easy it is to engage screens and presentations and graphics, I have all sorts of tools at my fingers. Hold on, can I share something here?
Yes.
Good, sharing is my favorite. Hold on. Okay, so here. Can you all see that?
Nice.
So this program happened. I'm going to give you just a few samples of our programming so you see what it is. So when we lived in Amsterdam, I was in a taxi car once with a Dutch man who went on, and he didn't know I was a musician, of course, but he went on and on about how smart Bohemian Rhapsody is. It was the smartest song ever. I was like, why do you think that? I was so fascinated. And he talked about Bohemian Rhapsody. I was like, I'm going to do a Canvas about Bohemian Rhapsody, and we're going to pull it apart. Theoretically, we're going to play it. I'm going to get my band guys together. We're going to play. Um, and people still talk to me about this. This is almost 10 years ago. And they learned, I talked about the psi motif. I talked about 5-1, which is, of course, base level for you and I. But for average listeners, they felt like they had gotten the holy grail of information, learning what a dominant tonic relationship was. That it was just fascinating. And yes, I have a sense of humor. It was really fun. But then here's another one. Can you see that? Okay. So this program, along the way, a patron, kind of friend of a friend who's a big patron of arts, heard about Canvas. He was really excited about what I was doing. And guys, I don't know how else to just say this, but the dude gave me a Steinway Grand. I was playing on a Yamaha upright for our shows at the time, and the man was just generous beyond measure. And so that piano you see there is what I call Lady A. She's a Steinway A, 1887, fully redone parts. The man you see there is the man who redid the piano, the soundboard's done, the mechanism, I'm blanking on the name. Pianist, help me out. The mechanism, the moving parts. Anyway, not the keys. No, there's a better word. This is really embarrassing. All that piano degree. Well, whatever. Whole piano was rebuilt. So, in a very professional sense, I burst into tears in gratitude when this man gave me the piano. And I said, I will do a canvas about anything you want. And he said, Rachmaninoff. And I was like, anything but that, because that's really hard. But okay, Rachmaninoff it is. So I played a program of Rachmaninoff. I brought the man who redid the inside of the piano out to speak. So what you're seeing here, the program was half about, I called it Rachmaninoff Man and Machine. So this piano is a similar vintage to what Rachmaninoff played on. And so the man took the piano apart, and this was just great because the audience just gasped. They thought the piano was going to break. But instead, we encourage people to come up and look and touch the inside of the piano and understand how it works. And people were like, I've never thought about how a piano works before. So that was another really special event. Are these pictures boring you, or are you good with these pictures?
We're great.
Keep going.
Okay, I won't do too many more. Okay, so here's another piece of canvas that I really just selfishly appreciate. Our audience is young, old, black, white, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. In some ways, it feels like a sanctuary to me. And we talk about music. I pay everyone fairly who comes in. These are all session players who come to our concerts. There is a very strong classical leaning to what we do, but I always couch everything in fun and enjoyment and education. And what you're seeing here is a celebration of our 25th original program. I had a really short haircut. I'm the one back there at the piano. And at one point, we dropped a big bag of yellow balloons. And I have to say, this was one of the best human music moments of my life. And I sang with Oli Choir for 3 years. So that really means a lot, because that was there are incredible moments there, incredible moments in many places. But what I loved was this diverse gathering of people who probably wouldn't fork out $100 to see LA Phil, but they were there that night. We had string quartet, bassoon, piano, singers, and it was human. And there was joy in the room. There was learning in the room. I often say, if people laugh and cry in equal portions, I've done my job for the night. And I stick to that. Okay, let's see. Yes, I've had the chance to bring Canvas programming to high school, to junior high, to some elementary school, which has been great, including a project that has come front and center in the last year, and that is a project called Meeting the Ghosts. That is when living in Amsterdam, I learned that our house had been a place of resistance during World War II. And my husband is Jewish, so for us and our family, that really means something. The experience of World War II and the Holocaust has great impact. And so I hope this is not new information to you, but right now there's a huge rise in uncovering lost music by Jewish composers, and now coming to stages more and more, and conservatories and music schools. I'm trying to get this music played. So what you see here, I'm in Denver speaking to a middle school about this project and playing for them. I'm about to play a piece by Leo Smit, who is a Dutch Jewish composer who died at the age of 45 at Sobibor concentration camp. So part of this pivot, and part of the reason I get to be here, is when COVID hit, the whole Canvas season, like everything else, came to a grinding halt. That was the end of that, at least for a while. We went online. And at first I was stupidly ambitious, saying, I'm going to do a new program every week, which is just ridiculous. But we did have some really special online moments and ended up having thousands of viewers from across the globe, which was great. That was new for us to do online programming. And this was something we surveyed our Canvas mailing list and said, if you have essential workers in your life, ask them what their favorite song is, and then I will write an arrangement of it and we'll perform it as part of Canvas Online, which in the end ended up being not entirely original, but you know, we were kind of on the front side of doing those things. And again, just keeping humans, remember, humans and birds. Thank you for bringing that up. Humans and birds at the center of our programming. I'm lying. Birds will not be a center of our programming. Maybe I should never say never. Never say never. But I would be a liar if I said I was giving birds equal time to humans. I'm not. But I will put it on my radar. So anyway, that is, and the reason I'm here is because I had the chance to offer online internships with St. Olaf students this year to work on Meeting the Ghosts. And I got to work with Grace. She was one of our interns. And I almost thought I saw Emmy in there. It is you! Hi, Emmy!
Hi.
The headband, that's what got me. I knew it was you. So I had this amazing time to bring musicology, performance, storytelling together to help advance the World War II project called Meeting the Ghosts. So I could spend a lot of time talking about that project, but I'm watching the clock and I know that is not my thing. So another time, if you want, I will come back and talk about birds and ghosts, both of them together. Ghostly birds.
Lynn, if you could just like kind of open it up for questions. I don't know if anyone has questions, or is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want.
Anybody?
Yeah.
What brought you back to, wait, okay.
What?
What brought you to Santa Monica?
What brought me to St. Olaf?
Santa Monica.
LA. What brought you back to LA?
Being in the pursuit of being an arranger. And knowing that was, okay. Have you guys seen the Muppet movie, the original Muppet movie, like 70s Muppet movie? How many of you have seen that movie? Okay, more of you need to see that movie. Please get on that. Bring your favorite bird if you want. In that movie, Kermit the Frog is in the swamp. I'm not a crazy person. I swear to you guys, I am not crazy, okay? But Kermit the Frog gets approached by the Dom DeLuise, who says, hey, you're in a swamp playing the banjo. Why don't you go to Hollywood to make millions of people happy? And Kermit strums his banjo. He's like, oh, make millions of people happy with my music. And he has this epiphany. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go to Hollywood, make millions of people happy, which ended up being maybe thousands on a good day. But the point was, I knew Hollywood was where the storytelling center was, the music industry center was, and I thought my entry point would be in arranging. And that's where the most work was for me. I'm not crazy. I swear it.
I actually have a question. Could you just say like, what was your like most valuable experience at St. Olaf that you still like use in your everyday life as a musician, and just kind of talk about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Valuing ensembles, the practice of being a pianist who also had a very daily experience of valuing the gift of ensembles was huge. Here's the thing with St. Olaf. I wish I could say like, oh, it was the way I hold my wrist when I do arpeggios or something like that. I'm sorry, I got nothing of that. I have the human experience of valuing ensemble music, valuing fellow musicians, setting a high standard as you go out in the world of how you can interact as musicians. It can be done. You can be cooperative musicians who are not cutthroat in competition. And I know that sounds maybe, it sounds soft, but it's really important, I think. I think it's really important that musicians have more humanity in them. I think that would be the valuable lesson. I don't know, Grace, did that kind of hit the mark-ish?
Yeah, that was good.
That and my wrists. My wrists are much better now. No dropped wrists.
Yeah.
That and I learned how to sneak into Studio A, which proved to be really entertaining sometimes.
How does one sneak into Studio A?
Well, okay, you take organ lessons. You take organ lessons because you're a pianist and, and then you talk John Ferguson into giving you a spare key when he's in a weaker moment. Oh, John Ferguson's not there anymore, is he? Ah, shoot. Yeah, I don't know. You become an organ student, at least for a semester, and then you get a key. I'm so sorry. That's bad. That's bad. Don't do that. What else?
You still have that?
Why would you still have the key to Studio A?
I don't know. I want it.
I don't know. I don't think it works, guys. I went back for a reunion and I tried it and it didn't work. But let me know if that trick works. I mean, I know it's a commitment to take organ lessons just to get the key, but just consider it. There's there's like a long play involved with that. So just think about it, okay? Just don't tell anyone at St. Olaf that I told you that. I did not say that. Do not tell Anton I said that. Do not tell Tim or Steve I said that. But seriously. What do you guys, can I ask a question? How are you guys doing? What are you thinking about your musical lives and your musical future? How are you feeling?
I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but at least for me, I'm more concerned with just getting through the week than thinking about the future, because the nature of being a St. Olaf student is to be busy, 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 and then more busy if you can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, you will appreciate the work ethic, but I get it. I mean, music majors are like, you have 3 majors at once, right?
Yeah.
Never to be seen.
No.
I get it.
Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you were studying here, because you mentioned that remembering your humanness while being a musician is very important to you, is there a piece that kind of just shoved that back in your face after you've forgotten it for a little while? And what was that experience like?
A musical piece, you mean?
Yeah, like any piece of music that just abruptly reminded you of how human you are.
Every piece.
None of that.
Well, I will say this. When I graduated, I kind of felt like friends who were at big name conservatories and everything, I felt a little sheepish. Like people couldn't pronounce St. Olaf right, St. Olaf, and what is that? And isn't that on Golden Girls? And I was like, oh, this is just the worst. If I went to Juilliard, everyone would know what I was talking about. Why do I have to explain myself? And it took me many years to realize how valuable the humanness side is. And that's not to say you shouldn't push hard and be competitive and embrace your ambition. But also value where you are. When I went to UC Santa Barbara, the first couple months, and not that that was a great school, but at the time it was one of the top theory schools in the country. And I was kind of getting flack from the other students. They didn't know what St. Olaf, isn't that from Golden Girls? And then the one professor in the theory department who I valued the most, out of nowhere, one day he told me, he said, you know what? We've had a few St. Olaf students here. St. Olaf students come out better prepared to be whole musicians than from anywhere else. And it was this thing like, oh my gosh, this revered academic professor of mine just gave me props for St. Olaf when I was feeling embarrassed that it wasn't a big school. So I think there's some maturity there. It takes a mature decision to say people matter and birds matter as well. It takes so embrace whatever instinct or decision brought you to St. Olaf. You all chose it for some reason, right? Maybe it's the cafeteria food. Oh, don't even get me started. I went in the early 90s. You guys don't know what you don't know what you got. We had food. Anyway, I'm just kidding, kind of. But whatever brought you to St. Olaf, I think it will give you something good in your life. Whatever you do, if you go to Juilliard next, if you teach in middle school next, if you become a church choir director, whatever you do, there's good reason why you're there. And it is people. And it's really, I don't know, maybe you guys are better quality humans than I am. I had a really hard time separating my ego and where I thought I should be and valuing certain school degrees over others. It was really hard for me to turn that off. I don't know. Is that something you struggle with, or is that just me? It's me and my birds.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard. And I get it. And some of that is healthy. I really appreciated what Jay said about going to New England next. So great. And I have many friends who went those paths from St. Olaf, and they are very well equipped and they are healthy, thriving musicians. But just no matter where you go, trust your instinct, whatever instinct brought you to St. Olaf, because there's something good there too, and other people may not get it, but you chose it, and it was probably for a reason that will serve you well in your life. And don't be afraid to call it, even if it is humanity and birds. It's the running gag, the bird thing. So humanity counts, ambition counts, getting ahead counts, humanity counts. It really does.
Well, I think that's all of our time, but thank you so much for talking to us. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Guys, can we get a picture with you?
This is gonna look really weird for you, but it's gonna look great, we promise.
I love it. I love it.
All right, okay, no.
No.
We need to do a two-row situation again.
Did you guys all just leave or something? It's empty.
I told you this was looking. It's gonna be fine. They're taking a picture.
Okay, thank you.
Smile.
Smile.
Going that way.
Yeah. She's tall, so.
Do we get it?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Bye, you guys. Good luck.
Bye.
Stay warm. Wear your mittens.